Good afternoon, one and all. Charles Darwin once said, "It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change." The world we live in is continually changing at such a lightning pace that we find it hard to keep up. As a result, organizations also feel burnt out, and it has become imperative for leaders to steer their organizations on new paths and thus lead through the turbulence that defines our modern times.
As we gather here today, our minds are abuzz with enthusiasm and excitement, separated by distance, yet united by our eagerness to learn. Ladies and gentlemen, we consider it a great pleasure to warmly welcome you to our much anticipated event, the Leadership Summit of the Vinod Gupta School of Management, IIT Kharagpur, held under the aegis of Purvodaya 2022. This gathering seeks to bring together some of the brightest minds of the corporate world in an endeavor to explore new concepts and innovative pathways with the aspiring leaders, and thus carve out fresh thinking processes and perspectives in the domain of business management.
The journey we are about to embark on in a few minutes will take us through the nuances of breaking paradigms and unconventional leadership to critical concepts which are of utmost importance in achieving breakthrough results. I am Srijita Chakraborty,
And I am Sai Tarun.
and we will be your hosts for the event.
Before we proceed with the event, we would like to take this opportunity to thank all of our distinguished guests and respected faculty members who have taken time out of their busy schedules to attend the Leadership Summit. Now, without further ado, we would like to welcome our respected Dean, Professor V.N.A. Nayagan.
A virtuoso in industrial engineering and pragmatic in nature, Professor Nayagan is a proud alumnus of IIT Kharagpur, where he completed both his master's degree and doctorate. He has extensive experience in the domain of industrial engineering and operations, with a keen interest in condition monitoring, product design, quality, and reliability engineering, amongst others. He has published over 120 papers in international journals and conferences and is the author of 3 books. We now request Professor Nayagan, Dean of the Vinod Gupta School of Management, IIT Kharagpur, to share his invaluable insights with us.
Yes, good afternoon. I hope you can see me.
Yeah, very much.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, very good afternoon to all of you. I am delighted and privileged to welcome you all to one of the flagship events of our school, the Vinod Gupta School of Management, IIT Kharagpur, the Leadership Summit 2022. So, usually we invite several industry stalwarts to a symposium at our campus to discuss some of the most pressing issues of our times. So, however, the times are testing right now and also uncertain. The resilience to grow and move forward has led us to adopt an online version of the event. So, it is truly an honor to host such a distinguished panel who have taken time out of their busy schedules to join a discussion that will bring forth diverse viewpoints and new thinking process for our aspiring managers to consider. In these very rapid and uncertain times, every organization needs to have a very resilient and innovative approach to tackle new challenges as they arise. The need for leadership to find a new path to lead through the turbulence is imminent. The discourse of the distinguished panelists who have joined us today will certainly enhance the knowledge of country's future leaders in this crucial topic and enable them to carve out new thought process and perspectives. In the words of John C. Maxwell, a leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. Leaders are the people that make the difference between success and failures. A leader is someone who has a futuristic vision and can turn his ideas into success stories. But who is a leader? What are the qualities that good leaders should possess? So some of these are like, say, unquestionable integrity, confidence, honesty, assertive but not very overconfident, positive approach, commitment, clear and efficient communication, ability to motivate, ability to make the right decisions even in the most confusing and difficult times, creative and innovative thinking, acceptance of failures and learning from the mistakes, ability to take calculated risk, etc., etc. The list is very long. All of us are eagerly waiting to hear the views of our distinguished panel members of the Leadership Summit 2022 on this topic. IIT Kharagpur is one of the few elite universities in the country that successfully produces some of the world's most known leaders, influencers, and change agents. Our students and alumni have been shaped by our famous motto, dedicated to the service of the nation. Their contribution has had a long-term influence on their field of work and society. Many of you here today will become great corporate leaders and torchbearers of excellence as institute ambassadors. Your experience here must prepare you for what lies next in the business world. So with these few words, I would like to welcome you all once again to this platform for proactive participation and exchange of ideas. I wish you all the best and enjoy the discussion and interaction in this leadership summit. Thank you very much.
Sir, thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. It has undoubtedly enlightened the minds of the aspiring leaders and set the tone for today's proceedings. Your guidance and support have been invaluable to us. Thank you once again, sir.
It would have been our pleasure to welcome you all to the beautiful and lush campus of IIT Kharagpur. While the online approach has allowed us to continue our learning uninterrupted, it has also prevented us from fully experiencing the campus. They say that a video is worth 1,000 pictures, but we know very well that the beauty of campus life cannot be expressed through a mere video. However, let's take a quick peek at some of the memorable moments caught on campus.
Vinod Gupta School of Management, IIT Kharagpur, founded in 1993 by a distinguished alumnus and lifetime fellow of IIT Kharagpur, Mr. Vinod Gupta, is the oldest B school in the IIT ecosystem. Striving to develop technology-driven future industry leaders, VGSoM offers programs which provide a unique blend of managerial and technological insights into the business world. With a rich legacy spanning over 25 years, VGSoM has grown holistically, winning several accolades and has been consistently ranked amongst the top B schools in the country by several prestigious ranking bodies. The flagship program of VGSoM is a full-time residential program for graduate engineers and master's degree holders in science, economics and commerce. Featuring a unique mix of lectures, case studies, group projects and workshops, the institute is currently amongst the best in India. The diverse curriculum consists of a plethora of electives on both core managerial and technological courses. Moreover, it provides valuable industry exposure through a 2-month summer internship program.
VGSoM boasts of a highly experienced faculty fraternity from various fields of management, with most of them having prior industry and corporate experience. Through a unique mix of theoretical and case-based lectures, the faculty strives to bridge the gap between the students' skill base and the industry trends and expectations. Also, the faculty to student ratio is one of the best in the country, owing to the less batch strength. which helps in greater individual attention by the faculty towards the student.
A few of the central facilities that are accessible round the clock in the campus are Central Library with a dedicated online digital section, gymnasium, canteen and guest house, swimming pool and other sports facilities. Nurturing the holistic development of future business leaders and contributing significantly to management education over the last 2.5 decades, VGSoM is a trailblazer in the true sense. Banking on its technical expertise, IIT Kharagpur empowers VGSoM in terms of infrastructure, intellectual resources, and a rich alumni base. With a strong will to be the best in the country, VGSoM welcomes you to scale new heights and be a part in its never-ending service to the nation.
Thank you for that video. Before we move ahead, I would like to welcome Mr. Prasun sir, who just joined us. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Thrilled to be here.
Thank you, sir. While some of the students have already reached the campus, we hope that the rest of us are able to join them soon and share these incredible experiences.
Before we begin with the central proceedings, we would like to introduce our esteemed panelists. The greatest leaders mobilize others by coalescing people around a shared vision. It is with immense pleasure that we welcome our first panelist, Mr. Amitabh Panda, Managing Director at Tata NYK Shipping. An alumnus of XLRI, Mr. Panda is an industry veteran with more than 25 years of experience. He is equipped in delivering profitable growth, building new businesses from scratch, and managing large-scale supply chain operations. Outside the Tata Group, he had worked for around 10 years in the banking and consulting sector with global multinational organizations like ICICI Bank and Free Markets Incorporation. He has been on the Global CPO Advisory Board at SAP AG, a core member of the ICCC Forum, and has advised the Ministry of Shipping, Government of India on coastal shipping as a working group member. We are highly privileged to host you, sir, and look forward to imbibing from your stellar intellect at the event.
To further,
Okay.
sorry, sir.
No, I just said thank you very much, Srijita. That was more the pleasure of the giver than the merits of the receiver. The good things that you said about me. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, sir. It's our privilege to have you here with us today.
Same here. Absolute privilege and honor to be sharing time with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your kind words, sir. To further add to the discourse, our next panelist imbibes the notion that leadership is a potent combination of strategy and character. We are extremely proud to introduce Mr. Gaurav Sabharwal, CEO at Kanta Public, India and South Asia. An alumnus of FMS and IIT Kharagpur, Mr. Sabharwal is a consulting and technology industry veteran who has over 25 years of experience in business development, strategy, public policy, social research, transformations, and program implementation across the government and public sector. He also has extensive experience in digital transformation gained through working across a broad range of sectors. He was previously executive director at EY, where he was involved in business, technology, and transaction consulting within the government and public services division. He also comes with extensive global experience, having worked in Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and Southeast Asia. We eagerly anticipate being enlightened by your unique perspectives, sir.
Thanks a lot. Thank you so much, and look forward to the discussions.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor having you here.
Our next eminent panelist illustrates that leadership is not about a title or a designation. It is about impact, influence, and inspiration. We are honored to welcome Mr. Prasann Kumar, Chief Marketing Officer at Just Dial. With over 20 years of experience, Mr. Kumar is a seasoned marketing professional, brand expert, blogger, technology enthusiast, and entrepreneur at heart. He has excellent record of launching and managing businesses and brands, conceptualizing and driving consumer acquisition strategies, and managing cross-functional teams. Mr. Kumar has an in-depth understanding of consumers, communications, and consumer brand interaction. We eagerly await the opportunity to assimilate insights from your vast repertoire of experience, sir.
Thank you very much. Those were kind words. Look forward.
Thank you, sir. It is our pleasure to have you here.
To further add to the wide compendium of knowledge on leading paradigm shifts and achieving breakthroughs in a disrupted world, we are thrilled to present our next panelist, Ms. Sanchita Mustafi, Chief Risk Officer at Tata Capital. She is an alumnus of IIM Calcutta and NYU Stern. She is a cost accountant and has over 26 years of experience in the banking and financial services industry, leading strategic planning, business development, and credit and risk management. She joined the Tata Group into Tata Motors Finance as a regional manager for credit. She is one of the founding members of Tata Capital and has had significant contribution in setting up the commercial and SME finance division as Chief Credit Officer. We are highly privileged to host you, ma'am, and look forward to hearing your invaluable insights.
Thank you, Bala, so much. And thanks to the whole team here. And today is a wonderful day. So wish you all a Shubha Vasant Panchami. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. It's an honor to have you here.
Added to the multiverse of perspectives, we are excited to introduce our next panelist, Ms. Reena Evans, Director of Operations at Swiggy. She has more than 15 years of extensive experience in supply chain and catalogs with leading global organizations in e-commerce. She possesses a strong commercial orientation and has delivered significant unit cost improvements and enhanced revenue generation for the organization. She has hands-on expertise in building world-class teams as well as in setting up and managing catalog operations. She has demonstrated proven capabilities in people management, operations, and performance management. We eagerly await your critical insights and are delighted to welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for the invite, and I'm extremely privileged to be there sharing my insights and perspectives with you all here. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. It is our pleasure to have you here with us.
With everyone on the panel primed and ready for the amalgamation of ideas and perspectives, we take immense pleasure in presenting our moderator, Mr. Rupank Chowdhury, partner and Chief Commercial Officer at Aeon India. Mr. Chowdhury is an alumnus of IIM Indore, IMC Delhi, and St. Stephen's College. With over 20 years of experience in the industry, he has managed varied consulting assignments across reward strategy and benchmarking, job description and evaluation, organizational structuring, and performance management system design, In his current role as CCO, he is responsible for client relationships and development for all of Aon's existing solutions and new products. He is also a published author across well-known publications such as Huffington Post, People Matters, Business Insider, and many more. Sir, we are eagerly waiting to draw inspiration from your vast gamut of leadership experiences.
Thank you for having me here. I look forward to this session and hosting this very esteemed panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Human civilization has consistently undergone radical transformation when confronted with new opportunities and challenges. One of our key strengths has been to prosper in times of adversity. Irrespective of our ever-increasing predictive capabilities, epoch-making events strike with little to no warning. In such a rapt world, leaders who rapidly pivot organizational objectives and embrace new challenges are the ones who achieve breakthrough results. With this pretext, this year, the lively discussion at the Leadership Summit will revolve around the theme, Leading Paradigm Shifts, Achieving Breakthroughs in a Disrupted World. We have brought together several corporate luminaries who can guide us in discovering new ways to achieve and sustain extraordinary outcomes, build and develop a culture of growth, and become future ready. Now, to give you a glimpse of the theme, we present to you this short video.
We are sure you all are looking forward to hearing what our esteemed panelists have to share today. It is now time for us to step off the driving seat and hand over the reins to our moderator, Mr. Rupang Chowdhury. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Just want to check if I'm audible.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay. And are all the panelists are able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Rupang.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, we can. Good to see you.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us on this Saturday afternoon. And first of all, I hope all of you are doing safe and everybody in your homes and family is also doing fine. It's a pleasure to be part of this panel, and I must say that in addition to the students at IIT Kharagpur. Even I'm looking forward to learning a lot from you because many of you have more experience than I have and have worked in many diverse industries and have a great perspective. So I'm also looking forward to having a interesting discussion. I think we have close to around about 90 minutes, so we have ample time, and we have a bunch of areas that we would like to discuss. The way I wanted to play the format is that I'd like to talk a little bit about what my take on the topic is. End of the day, I'm a consultant, so I have a point of view on everything. So I thought I'll start with my point of view on what it means to be a leader in today's disruptive world, right? And what are the areas that our consulting research shows that are critical, important for businesses to not only survive but even thrive. And then after that quick 10-minute introduction, we will start the Q&A. And I have been already provided a list of questions that have been compiled by the students. So which means that we don't really have to, have people in chat posing questions. But once we finish our discussion, in the end, I'll probably spend another 20 minutes just picking up the questions that have come from the students already. And I think some of them are already directed at some people. So that's easy. But wherever there are generic questions, I will take the liberty of asking some of you who I think will be most relevant to answer that question. My only request, as I had told you earlier, is that let's be spontaneous, and let's even if there is something that needs to be called out and we need to debate a topic, let's do that, and let's make the discussion more interesting and lively, than just a monologue. And hopefully we can exchange some great ideas and take things forward from here. Okay, so let me just start by giving a few points of view on what I thought when I thought of leadership and disruption. But before that, I just wanted to create a bit of a macro perspective of why leadership becomes important in today's world and why is this world being constantly called disruptive or VUCA or whatever you might call it. All of us know what has been happening in the last couple of years. The global economy is trying to recover, but it's an incomplete recovery. Most of you know that the world economy shrunk by 3.5% in 2020. It rose back by close to 5.5% in 2021. But clearly, across the globe, there has been a divergence in recovery where some countries have managed K-shaped recoveries, others continue to bear the brunt of the virus. Fiscal stimulus to spur growth has been a very common theme across many economies. Rising inflation and rising cost of capital continues to be a cause of concern across many economies. And then finally, from a socioeconomic perspective, rising global inequality is something that unfortunately the pandemic has aggravated and has increased, when you really look at availability of the vaccine per capita income in many different countries. Now, what does it mean for the world for us, right? The world is changing and we are all operating in the new normal. The pandemic isn't over, but it has helped companies to reorder their priorities and accelerate innovation. Now, some of the trends that we are seeing when it comes to people, and of course, these are what CEOs and CEOs are talking about, are sort of different ways to operate in the new normal. I think the whole concept of distributed workforce, the where, how, and when of the way we work is changing. The pandemic has exposed newer risks and vulnerabilities for organizations, and many CEOs are now looking to reassess risk. The whole concept of employee coming first and the focus of well-being and mental peace of employees for an engaged workforce is something that we are all seeing and experiencing around us. And then finally, transformation to adoption, with technology being the central theme for most future outlook and plans, is something that, again, we can't ignore. Our research shows that top priorities for CEOs and CXOs, or what we call as a CXO scorecard, has a bunch of new things on the people agenda. Talent management and reimagining careers and performance management for employees is critical. Diversity and inclusion and policies that allow employees unhinged freedom of expression has made a big jump into the top of the agenda. Looking at how to re-examine rewards which promote internal equity, improve financial well-being, is something that the pandemic has brought upon us. And then finally, focus on building digital capability for the employees, because it's impossible to keep buying digital talent, is something that leaders are now talking about. The digital revolution that we are seeing is also impacting multiple industries, right? As digital spreads across industries, we realize that its impact is not just limited to the tech industry, but across many. If you look at retail, media, telecom, financial services, education, insurance, these are industries which are looking at a very high pace of disruption and also a very high quantum of disruption. Then some of the others like consumer, industrial, healthcare, professional services are also somewhere in the middle, right? So clearly, the whole aspect of digital revolution is making us believe that unless we are able to prepare for this, right, we will fail. We will fail to make the sectors survive, make the industries survive, because there is going to be significant cost pressure and budget constraint that many of you are already, I'm sure, seeing. The war for talent is heating up. That is not going to abate. Innovation and transformational capabilities to enable new and manage new business demand products is going to be clearly there. Automation of jobs, building capabilities to respond quickly to challenges are all mandates that the new industry or the new world needs to survive in. And I believe that leaders play a very, very large role in putting this together. Now, if you really look at what the changing role of leadership has come across into today's time, leaders have to embrace all that is happening around us. I think there is technical advancement, rapid development within IT, innovation, technology, increasing business complexity, faster product innovation, omni-business channel, ever-growing ecosystem of partner companies, and then the constant change. Digitalization has enabled faster decision-making and execution, but it's something that has to be adopted, right? And good leaders are able to simplify all three for their employees. They encourage their employees to not only harness technology, but also are able to innovate and collaborate and become a facilitator. They become agents of change, to put it very, very simply, right? Now, I did want to talk about a few areas that we will talk about in our panel, right? The great resignation, which has come about during the pandemic, is really, really becoming a cause of concern for attracting and retaining staff during a tidal wave of resignation, right? 86% of the companies face a talent shortage that is keeping the leaders up at night. And maybe, you are one of them too. 76% of the companies report a loss of critical skills, and 79% says that the talent is leaving for better career opportunities, right? The next biggest reason is better pay. That people are leaving for pay is something right up there. And we all know that because the market today is extremely heated. Hence, the current labor market is unlike something that we have ever seen before. Unemployment is an all-time low, and it's possible that employment will enter uncharted territory over the next coming years. Resignations are at an all-time high. How do organizations attract, retain key skill sets into the future, right, is going to be very, very important for most of us as we move into the new normal. And then the great convergence is also playing a very important role. Skills are converging. There is digital convergence, which is changing consumer demands, technical advancement, and business models. And these models are now becoming industries closer, resulting in more competition from a broader set of industries with differing value proposition. So the world as we knew it has changed quite a bit. Now, what does this actually mean for leaders? What can leaders actually do, right? I mean, future of work, disruption, talent uprising, which is basically opportunities for companies to innovate, are very, very critical phases for organizations, right? A few years back, I remember I read about a model which spoke about the 4 different R's of transformation. During the COVID wave in 2020-21, first companies were trying to recover. Then they were trying to return to work. Then they were trying to rebuild. And the 4th R, which only a few companies picked up during the pandemic, was reimagine. When they came back into the workforce post-COVID, not only did they rebuild and recover successfully, but they also reimagined how things could be done. New models came into place. Winston Churchill very famously once said, never waste a good crisis, right? Crises have come and gone in 2009 and 2020. But there are very few companies who've been able to actually leverage those crises to actually engage for opportunities. And it is leaders who are able to see opportunities in chaos, end up end up doing better than the others and taking their organizations to higher waves of growth, right? So while again we can talk about themes of talent uprising and embracing the future of work, I think some ways in which leaders can actually make this transformation happen during chaotic times, can be summed up in a few words. I think the first aspect from my lens is being intentional about creating a culture required to move their business forward. That is very important because we many times ignore the culture that is there and we start focusing on some of the other more tactical activities. Increased emphasis on a caring and engaging leadership, because by developing relationships only can you unlock somebody's potential while balancing the needs of the business. That's something, again, a leader has to really think about. Leveraging on innovation to develop leadership talent in a remote or hybrid environment. This is future of work. And leaders who can manage chaos in such a mode of work obviously will bring much more value into their organization. DEI is becoming very important to recruitment and to retention, as well as the employee experience. Studies have shown that the impact of diversity and inclusivity on business performance, customer experience, and innovation is sizable. It's strange that companies still choose to ignore that, and not many have jumped onto this bandwagon. And I think lastly, listening and responding to your employees is even more critical than before, because times are difficult, times are demanding. And the Great Resignation also came about for employees whose employers did not listen to them. As a result, the key focus for organizations and leadership is to work on the lessons learned over the last 2 years of the pandemic, to understand what's worked well, what could be improved, and how motivations and expectations of people are changing. Also essential to look at new ways of working and not be under the illusion that things are going to revert to the way they used to be. Employees want to be heard, and it will be unwise for leaders not to facilitate some of those, that degree of choice. But I guess my last point is there is substantial competitive advantage to be gained by organizations during the current chaos, but the ones who will do this will be the ones who will most effectively realign their culture to enable business strategy and transform the talent management practices into newer ways of working. Now, I think that's a lot of consultant gyan from my end, so I will now take a pause. And I will now try and bring in my esteemed panel to answer some questions that I have put together. What I have actually done is that I have broken down the whole sort of set of questions into four areas. The first one talks about the impact of COVID, because this is still most fresh. It's sort of in chronological order, what happened in the last couple of years. Then we'll talk about what sort of generic and disruptive transformation leaders can achieve in the next few years. We will then touch about the Great Resignation, because everybody wants to know about Great Resignation. And then finally, we will talk about the future of work, because there is absolutely critical that we understand how the world of work is changing and how can leaders actually accelerate that change for their own employees and their own cultures. So let me pick up the first theme, which is the impact of COVID-19. And here, let me start by Gaurav, going to you. How do leaders effectively respond to events which one can no longer predict? I mean, what we call as black swan events, such as world wars, global pandemics, because we are in one of them. But as leaders, is there any blueprint that you think exists or that you have thought about? Because this COVID wave is possibly not the last one. There'll be many more black swan events which will probably come our way, even more than what we saw before. So how do you think leaders can actually prepare themselves and their organizations to respond to such events?
So that's an interesting thing. I think, we've gone through these events in our careers several times over. 2008, the Y2K at the end of the century, last century, we did see it. So several of them have happened. I think there's no set process. You've got to understand and react effectively. But I think one of the most important things that I have observed in my career is your ability, that happens in a storm. When you're on a ship, the captain takes control. You really got to start taking control yourself. You've got to, you are the most experienced as a leader of a team. You are possibly the most experienced person around. People are looking up to you. And that obviously means a little more stretch, a little more direct oversight of what's happening. But really, I think the first thing that I have seen all these storms through is when the captain takes control. I think for me, that, and of course, in such periods of time, going through with very effective employee engagement is extremely critical. COVID periods, one of the most significant impacts which you mentioned about was the resignation and losing of talent. I think indeed there have been several publications on it. Mental health in such situations becomes extremely important. Everybody goes through traumatic times. Suddenly getting into work at home, no timelines, no weeks, weekends became extremely troublesome for the workforce. So I think effective measures to engage with your employees, to be deeply connected to them, to understand their issues, a lot of empathy becomes extremely critical in such times to carry you through. And I think last but not the least, at one end your employees, and the other end, the customer and markets that you operate in is something that you need to be very tightly integrated with. I mean, just to give you an example, we work in the social sector. We are a corporate that works in the social sector across the globe, about 100 odd countries. And I think suddenly our funding dried up because businesses didn't have money. So they didn't want to spend on corporate social responsibility. Funders suddenly stopped money because governments didn't have money. But then there's suddenly a lot of money that came into health. So everybody in the social sector who moved from everywhere else to providing food and health, and impact of that, was able to sustain their businesses. So I think the ability to react to situation, and every situation will be very different. If you could predict what is going to happen, the ability to understand the dynamics of the market at that point in time, react effectively is what carries you through all such situations and all such storms. That said, I think, I personally think that, Black Swan is going to be becoming the norm, considering the geopolitical situation, considering the virus wars, biological wars that we seem to be getting into, with information of, viruses being created, quotes unquotes. So I think we don't know when, how, and what kind of situations will emerge. And therefore, leaders have to be ready at any point in time to be able to understand such situations and be in the captain's seat to take more effective control of what's the best to do. And last but not the least, sometimes in such situations, your normal processes and systems don't work, or they are not the best suited. So you have to have the ability and agility, set within the organization that you lead, to be able to, quickly adapt in a very agile way to what the market demands and what internal systems demand at that point in time, and to be able to reset equations. And that seems to be becoming the norm. The first time VUCA was designed, was spoken about was in 1987, if you look at the history on Google. And I think the first time corporates in India started talking about it was in early part of the century, the year 2000, 2004, 5. Almost every corporate, I was part of some Tata group, initiatives, including TBM, when we were talked of VUCA. So I think it's just, VUCA was then a term which you felt will someday happen. It's happening every day, today. That's where we are. That's the kind of world we live in. And you live by it every day.
So thanks, Gaurav. I think what you rightly mentioned was that it's quite difficult to, it's important to have that balance between external and internal. I think sometimes leaders get swayed by focusing too much on external markets and clients and fail to read the pulse of what's happening in their own organization, especially around engagement and mental health and wellness. And then they realize much later, right? And some of them are so focused on looking at the internal part, they don't know what's happening in the market and they let go of some opportunities. So that balance, I think, is very critical, as you rightly pointed out. Let me go to you, Amitabh. Amitabh, you have a lot of rich experience and across different industries, new age, old traditional companies. You've worked across all, and hence I think you've also seen how different sectors or different industries have dealt with different changes or challenges that have come, right? So how would you respond to this? I mean, what is it that you keep in mind when you look at any such unforeseeable events? And as Gaurav said, maybe there are going to be quite a few more in our lifetime. So, what's going to be, your sort of toolkit to manage such events?
Thanks. Yeah, you're absolutely right that there needs to be a toolkit, but unfortunately, the way things have been for my industry, the area I have worked in, the jury is still out. A black swan event like this that we had just now, or the global meltdown 2008, 7, 8, global financial crisis, right? So we are learning, right? So I will just go from what I have learned and what as a company we have learned. And like we discussed in our pre-panel, I will just refer a little bit to the company for which I work. And then, so for example, one of the first things that we did when this hit us, we saw our customers panic, right? So that was like something that we had not seen. And my customers, I'm in the shipping industry, and shipping is, the global trade. If the global worldwide GDP is 94 trillion, the global trade is, about $35 trillion. And shipping it's a very archaic industry, maybe thousands of years old, one of the oldest industries that since trade happened. Yeah, so we had to figure out how do you, get your customers to feel comfortable. Just to give you an example, my customers are like Tata Power. So Trombay was shut. The malls were not there. The offices were not working. So they did not require the coal that we bring for them from Indonesia to, Mumbai, or ArcelorMittal or Tata Steel, and name our clients. And we ship coal and raw material for them from various parts of the world. So that was, and they just walked out. They just could not, and we understood that. So first thing was, how do I support them? And in business, for a support, one of the key things that we need is a support from our financial stakeholders, right? The cycle of working capital. So how do the banks support you? So on the other hand, we saw the banks, Deutsche Bank so we are a Singapore headquartered company, and we're based here in Singapore. So Deutsche is one of our big bankers, ANZ Deutsches. Their cost of capital shot up. So we had, both on the customer side, just kind of, if I may say, reneging on the contracts, which was understandable. If no one is switching off a light in office, obviously you don't need the power. So the first thing we did was, we stood by the customers. To cut a long story short, we stood by the customers. We said, okay, we are there for you. Let's see, I have to take some loss. I have to divert my ship. I have to do some discussions with my supply base. We will do that. And how do we support you? So that's number one that we did in this situation that we had. And second, like Gaurav said, right, as a CEO of a company, you need to show up. The big job is you show up when the chips are down, right? So 80% of the work is the leadership showing up, being there with the team, being there, right there with your customers. And that's the second thing that, all of us that we did. And in companies like ours, which we are kind of multinational in a nature, that at least multicultural. So I have, obviously Indians, Singaporeans, Japanese. It's a joint venture with a Japanese company, Tata NYK. British, Malaysians, Filipinos, and all kinds of people. So, the cultural issue was, so you show up. All our leaders, they showed up. We were there in office, we were there talking to people, we were there with our staff. So that was the number two thing that we did, be with the customers and be with your people. Show up to show your solidarity, what you do. And a third, playbook that I typically have learned over my life is control the controllable, right? So your business environment has basically a lot of controllables and a lot of non-controllables, right? And in Tata's, we do that very well. We understand, no point focusing on non-controllables, which is like market-driven and other things, right? And today you can talk about predicting and doing some predictive analytics and stuff like that, and data analytics do throw up, we do have some view of the future. Future generally, you can create a plan B and C. But in my kind of a leadership style, my plan B is to make plan A work, right? Or plan C is to make plan B or A work. That's important. Otherwise, you keep going down the chain. And so how do you make something work? So that was important for us as well. So these are the three things that we do. We were controlling what could be controlled within our business, and not really saying, it was not a case of being a victim. The world is like this, what do you do? So I'm a victim, so my customers cannot do so. My financial side, my banks are in little trouble, my suppliers are in trouble. So there is a victim card that you can play, and you can live around it, and the organization kind of slips somewhere perhaps in that. So like I said, Rupang, we're still learning. We did few things, and surprisingly, this has been one of our best years in the last 15 to 16 months. We're clocking a turnover of close to $1 billion in the last 15, 16 months. I'm saying significant profitability, EBITDA, operating profit, net profit, return on equity, all looking good. So to answer your question, did we have a magic wand? I don't think so. We did what we thought we should do. And that's where it is. So yeah, like a consulting firm, I can't say this is the way you go, guys. But this is what we did, in our company, me and my leadership and my board members and my supplier base and my banquet, all of us understood, we kind of supported each other. Thanks. I thought that was a very long answer to your question.
So that's very helpful, Amitabh. Thank you so much for that perspective. Let me move to you, Sanchita. Financial services, essential service has had the unenviable task of going to office, working throughout the pandemic, and has its own set of challenges. Didn't have the luxury of possibly working remotely like many other sectors could. So for you, in the last 2 years, what were the challenges that you found most difficult for leaders like yourself to navigate, and what is your takeaway from this experience?
So Rupang, we are into financial industry where your whole business starts when you have lent the money to the borrower and to collect it. The first and the sudden impact when COVID hit us in the month of March, we realized that, oh my God, how am I going to collect the money from my customers? So first is you going to the collection team and asking them to go and collect the money. And that's when the person goes to the doorstep of the customer and collects the money. The second is, would be economic impact, and customers who are my MSME or a personal loan customers wouldn't have money to repay the loan. And the most important thing was how I'm going to take care of the health of my team members, because they would be affected by COVID. Their family member can get affected by COVID. How do I ensure that even when they're stepping out, they are maintaining safety norms? So first thing as a leader, what I thought we should be doing is, spend time with the team and keep talking with the team. And we innovated that prior to COVID, we never used Microsoft Teams as, tool to interact and keep doing meetings. Suddenly Microsoft tool becomes next to our mobile phone. Today, it is important than mobile phone. And, getting called, it's important than getting mobile phone ringing. It is Microsoft Team ringing is more important to me today. So we were quick in doing, becoming agile and have the agility to accept it. Then the next thing was empathy, having empathy with our team, meeting them on a regular basis, explaining them that this is a work from home condition, or this is a condition where you need to go to office. So initially, if you remember, NBFCs, which is the phase where I am, was not into the essential commodities. Then later it was added. By around July 2020, it was added. So we all made a rooster. So we decided that let's do a roostering and go ahead with this. So the first thing that we, I think as a leader is important is to, controllables, which Amitabh said, just look into your controllables and see how you can handle the controllables. Then the next thing is to spend time and have empathy around your team, because your team is the resource and you need to ensure that they're going to work in. We decided to add on oxygen concentration machines at our office. We decided to arrange vaccinations at our office. We arranged branch visits and all that. So the empathy, controllables, and the next thing is, you need to run your business. You need to have your bread and butter coming in. So to do that, collection team has to be there. So we started making, plans and strategies around that how I'm going to do it. And when the fourth stage came in, when we started getting back into the business, we realized that this is time we need to adopt digital business. And we had already adopted significantly digital, but this is the time as a head of the risk business of Tata Capital, we decided that we need to have a non-human touch lending business processes. And there we decided to go more digital aggressively and develop risk model. So at one side, we were empathy. The other side, we were having, controllables in control. And on the third side, we were spending time and energy into seeing how do we develop our businesses? How do we are back to the business? How do we do personal loan with, customer just clicking the, computer and asking for a loan, or a small SME loan, or, how do I ensure that? And then government supported our industry. This is one condition wherein government came ahead and supported by providing government guarantee scheme. So that was also one, we immediately sat down onto our, so analytics plays a critical role here when we had digital, disruptions which came into along with COVID. So yeah, that's how I think, this is very important for any leader to first sit down and analyze the situation and analyze how you're going to handle and break it into pieces to, handle each situation in a different way and, keeping your team intact. So we used to have every day in the morning and the afternoon, we used to have a meeting, team meeting to keep the team, engaged into the process and work. And the challenge today is, the biggest challenge today I'm facing and we all are facing is bringing back employees into office. Everybody is happy working from home. Everybody is happy working in casuals or, half semi-casuals, I would say, or half semi-formals. Nobody wants to come to office in full set dresses. People are buying more and more of informal dresses these days. And if you look at the credit growth in the market, NBFCs had a negative credit growth over last 1 year YOY basis. Banks have just started growing. Retail business, which is a demand push business, has significantly grown. And so it was important that we are back into the business. So putting back people into the system, putting back people into the roster, bringing them back to the office is the next challenge that we are facing. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Sanchita, for that. I think resonates quite a bit with, I think, few of us here. I'd like to pose the same question to you, Prasoon. What was the challenges that you found difficult to navigate as a leader? I know you, I think we were at Magic Bricks earlier, and then you moved to, I think, Just Style only in 2021. So I think you were in different places in the first wave, in different place in the second wave, and then third wave. So how were the challenges that you saw, and how were you able to respond to them?
Well, I think a lot has been anyway spoken by Gaurav, Amitabh, and Sanchita, and I think there's a lot of common thread across. Irrespective of industry or category that one operates in, I think some of these challenges were very fundamental across all kind of businesses that people were operating in. So to that extent, one did encounter similar challenges. I would just want to concise it, for benefit of students, under four kind of pointers that I would summarize as my learning during this phase. The first point is about having a purpose. I did realize during this crisis that organizations which have a well-defined purpose and which live by purpose tend to do far better in such scenarios. Having a purpose for your organization, for your entity, is not a new thing, but it had by and large remained confined to some boardroom discussions or some literature internally. Pandemic led challenges made me realize that if you live by those purposes or that defined purpose, it's far easier for you to navigate such situations. In organization that I was part of, we saw multiple revenue streams just drying overnight, and almost verticals collapsing. It could have set in a very set in a panic reaction. It could have set in a very on the spot reaction to things at that very moment. But I think going back to purpose, why are you there in the first place, helped us navigate through this phase, because we knew that as long as we remain true to that purpose, sooner or later we will be able to recover the lost ground. And so I think that was my biggest learning, the first learning that I had during this phase. The second point is something that I think Sanchita just spoke about, which is as a leader, you need to have empathy. And this crisis did bring it to the this particular aspect to the fore. Empathy towards your customers and empathy towards your employees, both external and internal, because you knew both were under stress, you knew both were under challenges. Navigating such a scenario where you are looking at your customers for revenue and you're looking at your employees to generate those revenues in such difficult circumstances for you to keep moving the ship ahead would not have been possible if as a leader one would not have enough empathy towards things. And a lot of organizations did a lot of those things that Sanchita was talking about. Ultimately, in my experience, what I saw is within the organization that I was part of, teams where leaders were, driving things with empathy, they were seen to be empathetic. Those teams did relatively better than with leaders who were, doing things from a distance, or probably were not as empathetic to situations, and this is, it's very difficult to formulate it, because empathy is something which is a human value, so to each his own, but it was a very clear trend that I at least observed, and I don't know whether it was true across organizations, but I did see that. The third thing that I did observe during this crisis phase was, for leaders, it's not only important to lead and important to do the right things. For leaders, it's also important to be seen doing the right things. In phases of crisis, people become perceptional, and perception do play a role. It's not important for example, Sanchita to put together those oxygen concentrators or, other things in place. But I'm sure it would have been equally, important to be communicating that, to be showing that, listen, we are there. Listen, we are doing this. We are with you, and we are, in the same boat. We are trying to do things. And so I think the third lesson that I learned is also to pay serious attention to building perceptions and positive perceptions. And leaders, I think this responsibility solely comes on leaders because it all comes from top, and you have to drive that. That's the third learning that I got during this crisis. And the fourth learning that I got was you need to build a team with innovative DNA. For long, we have been hiring people who have been functional superstars, who had functional competencies, who are champions of doing something, and so on and so forth. And much attention was paid to qualifications and experiences and a whole lot of interviews that one used to conduct was centered around what the person would have done in past, and therefore what possibly the person can bring on the table, and how best the organization can use that skill set. I think one of the things that this pandemic taught me is no matter whatever talent you want to hire, you do need to look for that innovative streak within the person, because a challenging time would demand you to go out of your comfort zone. It would demand you to seek solutions or find solutions in areas where you probably would not have gone earlier. You would not have probably thought about it, waded through it, but yet that's where the solution may lie. And only professionals who have that streak inside them, who can get out of their comfort zone, who could manage to think out of box during such crisis period, were able to do. I think Gaurav was giving that example of how the organization had to respond to that challenge and look at health and health related spends and kind of work there. Now, and this happened across organizations. I have had examples. I was in Magic Bricks, which was a real estate portal, and as you would know, real estate was one of the hardest hit, sectors, and it virtually kind of collapsed in that period. Now, how would you respond to that challenge? How would you sustain yourself? And as much as leaders, you are expected to provide solution. In our case, a lot of solutions came from young employees, who came and said, listen, why don't we do this? Why don't we try this? One of the, aspects that developers are probably looking for, is to bring consumers to their site and nobody's moving out of their house. Can we digitize that experience? This is how it can be done, and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, I think during that period of 6 months, we were the amount of new product initiatives and the amount of new initiatives that we drove within the organization were probably more than what we would have done in the last 3-4 years. Right. And it all got born out of this challenge. And it all came out of employees who had that innovative streak in them. They were not necessarily the senior most ones. They were not necessarily the ones who had won the last quarter's best employee award and so on and so forth. But they were the ones who were on their feet, who could think on their feet and who could contribute. So I think, as leaders, as we go forward, I think one of the ways to also survive and build business in this era is to look for colleagues who have this streak. So, these are the 4 things that I think were my big learnings during this phase. I hope it makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense, Prasoon. I personally resonate with the first point that you made on sense of purpose. I think many leaders, many companies, actually came down to brass tacks to figure out what they existed for. And that sense of purpose was a big guiding light as things sort of fell apart and then got back again. But if you have that one sense of purpose which takes you through, through thick and thin, I think that really helps any company navigate rough waters. Okay, Reena, I know you've been patiently waiting for me to ask you a question. Then I thought to myself that now you very smartly moved to Swiggy 3 years back, and Swiggy obviously had a great run in the last 2 years. I think while everybody else was struggling, Swiggy was making a lot of money and getting a lot of business. So maybe you probably won't have so many insights to share about what challenges you face. But let me ask you a slightly different question.
That's a wrong perception. That's a complete wrong perception.
I know. I'm just joking. But let me just pick up the last point that Prasoon was talking about. Now we are seeing this never normal world of work where things are just constantly changing. What are the key people skills that employers need to have across levels and functions to be able to brave this never normal world and be able to use the chaos or the change around us into more and more opportunity? What, in your opinion, in the last few years across the firm that you have worked with, what are you seeing as a changing dimension of people that you are trying to look for to hire and to build?
Okay, so again, as I said, it's a wrong perception because I come from operations. Okay, so we support the operations where we see a downtrend. Yes, it is a heartbreak thing to see, okay, everything is coming down. But here, while at Swiggy, we are already digital first, right? And we have a purpose. And all e-commerce industries, if you look at it, no matter whether it's a food industry or any industry, started selling groceries for the first thing, right? So that's a purpose. There is a purpose of utilizing the opportunity of crisis, which has been there. So here at Swiggy, while we were driving through these ups and downs or the entire wave of dealing with operations, yes, resignations and has been a big thing. When I say resignations, what led to resignations? The fear that we created, layoffs, right? We understood the market, and we understood the market might boom in, might not boom in, or maybe the way of working has to completely change, and think differently in operating the same work that we are doing in the past. So this created the resignations, at least according to me, because in operations, what I have seen is not people resigning. Here we have seen an increasing in work, and me finding the talent is become a challenge, because when I reach out to people, though they are laid off, they're not joining us because they're not very sure whether how the market is going to react. So instead, they want to think and pause and think and figure out, do they want to join somebody, or do they really want to pursue their passion? Right. So this pandemic has given that opportunity. And as a leaders, while we are looking at this, what are we really looking for? What kind of a talent we are looking for? Because it's, instead of me calling it an ever normal, I would say a new normal. Right. So that is how people are looking at being positive about what new things are happening. Anybody who's changing from one organization to another organization, looking at it as working from home is going to be a big thing. And that is what they're going to start, because it's a new normal. Right. So in this whole thing, one thing, I think we are doing all the other stuff right in across industries while we hire competency analysis, risk analysis, ability to think. These all are the basic things. But in the real scenario, how did we act on everything? Right. So that is what, so did you left what you're working for and then moving to something else is what your acting is? So this made us think when we are hiring, why did you really leave? Did you have to let go? Were you being laid off, or were you looking for pursuing something? Are you grieving on something? We need to look at all this. All we understood is we need a skill from an employee while we have everything else in place, is acting balanced, not reacting to a situation the way that every one of us have reacted, including the leaders, right? So I was on my maternity leave when I was heard about this, and it's somewhere in Feb, and I have to join back in April. And I got a call. Mine is one of the biggest operations team after delivery team on the ground. I was like, okay, can you come? I was like, what happened? In the next 2 days, we have to restrict the moment. I'm like, can we do my team in the last? That's general reaction and negotiation we bring into play, right? Then when we heard about layoffs, then it's approximately around 300 people to 400 people. We need to relook at it. It's not because we don't have business. We have seen the orders increasing, the pattern. We switching between food industry, cooked food industry to a grocery industry. So this is what, and especially from the hiring perspective, I think only one thing which was lacking is what at least the startup industries did is a quick fixes, desperate hirings, not really knowing the purpose of the role, right? So these are the things which actually made us step back when we are really looking for talent here, because not right at the moment people are ready to join a startup and take a risk in their careers. They are not ready to, because they are really looking at, instead of we looking at, people are shortlisting the companies that they want to work for, at least in the startup days, and coming back and telling what values that we have that fit their values, and then they are taking up the jobs. So this is how I would see it. So one thing which I feel very important is acting balanced during the situation.
Makes a lot of sense, Reena. Now, I know we have covered a lot of ground on the COVID part and the impact, and I want to move to the next section, but I did want to spend the last 5 minutes just taking a personal take from each of you. And Reena, let me start with you in the reverse order. The pandemic wisdom that you will pass on to the next generation of CXOs, what will you tell them if they were to ask you one thing as something that you learned, which is during the pandemic, one piece of pandemic wisdom?
What wisdom I would pass is, I'll say, like, accept and embrace the change, and always see that constant change within the work that we do is very much required. We need to burn our own playbooks. which we create. And I think the new startups, or already this is a culture we have in the startup. I think pandemic is a word we use, but we don't follow anything we created 6 months back. We rewrite everything and we see how we can do it much differently. I think that's one thing which I would give as a take is be in the moment, be in the situation, do not look back even hours or months that you spent till yesterday, because that doesn't going to bring any value to the moment that you're in. So that's a pretty simplest advice that I can give.
No, sure, and that makes a lot of sense. Amitabh, what about you? You're on mute.
One wisdom, if you really ask me what I can pass on, is basically, I think, that this too shall pass. Just stay the course. Whoever is my successor, right? I would think that that's the way, stay the course, don't quit, do all the things which others have said, in terms of empathy and, but stay the course, don't quit. Actually, pressure is a privilege. When you are under pressure, the best comes out of you, of your team. Work with your team and do that. And the other basic fundamentals or principles of corporate world of management, having a contingency plan. I'm not getting into all that. Being proactive rather than reactive. Those are kind of qualifiers, right? Any good organization worth their salt, they do that. But it's like all of us are kind of saying it's about the leadership, it is about the people, it is what do you do yourself, your team does, all your employees do is what matters in that period. And I think Gaurav mentioned that having that purpose, redefine the purpose if need be, so that you coalesce everyone together better. That's it. That's what I think.
Sure. What about you, Sanchita?
So the most important thing for a leader that I think I've learned in this pandemic is innovative, empathy, agility, and adaptability. These are the 4 things that a leader needs to demonstrate, walk the talk, and be one of who develop the perceptions about himself in these factors.
Sure.
Right. Now I'll change the question a little bit as I come to you, Gaurav and Prasoon. Not making it difficult for you, but trying to bring in a slightly more unique perspective, because a lot of what has already been said is going to resonate with what you might talk about. What would be that one personal insight you'd like to share that influenced your leadership style in the last 2 to 3 years?
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. I think the last, I presume you're asking about the COVID period, right?
Yes. Yeah. Since 2020. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So I think, staying connected, one phrase that I have used all my career always, and I think it was very well said by Reena and of course Amitabh as well, is change is the only constant, that's the only constant that you see in business. And interestingly, the rate of change also changes, and you learn to live with change and the rate of change, but I think one thing that I've seen is the most important thing is the human factor of every business, especially it carries through your tough time. When you're connected to your people, and I think we've said it time and again in terms of empathy, Sanchita said COVID period, we were, working with the employees saying, yeah, there are issues. So that human factor of connect within the organization, connect outside the organization. Amitabh said how, businesses and, lines, businesses just vanished. What you assumed was there, just finished, that, you were thinking you would do something and that was just gone. So I think that staying connected, that empathy, and when I say staying connected, it is across stakeholders. It's your board, that you need to update possibly much more frequently rather than those 3 months meetings on what's going on and how you're taking control and what you're doing. It's your leadership team that you need to constantly evolve to adapt. Stay connected with them, stay connected with your people. I think that communication over an email saying, that we understand what you're going through and working through with it is something that it is. I mean, just to give you a little example, we, during in the thick of second wave, we realized on a particular team, we were just having attrition like anything, and this was in the thick of second wave. And I think one of the things that we realized was that the leader of that particular team was doing a business review with his team at 3 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon. And every Sunday he was doing it, I mean, he was sort of getting the pleasure of being on Teams and telling people and telling everybody else that around the organization that I'm making them work so hard, which was just not needed at that point in time because there was anyway no business, that he had to work in. So I think that sort of set the tone for me. I said, I mean, if I understand, it was just staying connected with customers, with people, with your leadership, with your board, that is so critical, in such times. Absolutely critical for carrying you through. If you were to ask me the one single thing that I would really want to focus on.
Thanks, Gaurav. Prasoon, quickly, your views on this.
Sure. I think to answer the question straight, my leadership style changed from being, and I'm adding a little bit of spice here and an antithesis to what Gaurav said, from driving human factor to driving tech factor.
Oh.
And I think my leadership saw me adopting to technology very fast, quite a lot, driving a lot of things using technology, and getting a lot of the things done using technology, which in probably in earlier circumstances, or if situation would not have forced, may not have happened. And we would have been very comfortably doing things the way we were doing, and we were quite successful at that anyway. So that's where my leadership style changed. Less of human, more of tech.
Okay, so that's very straightforward and very, very meaningful. So thanks for that very quick, concise perspective. Okay, I think we've spoken enough about COVID. I want to move to the next section because obviously with a lot of chaos also comes a lot of opportunity on transformation. Now, I wanted to, go around the group and ask about, what sort of challenges or obstacles that the team sees when it comes to, really making paradigm shifts. So, Amitabh, let me start with you. And I want to ask you that, how do we effectively implement paradigm shifts or breakthroughs across large organizations? What are the common obstacles that may arise and how would you overcome them?
Yeah, no, thanks. That's a great question. Again, no straight answers, unfortunately. But I think one of our panelists did mention, having that purpose, having that goal, is very important if you really want to achieve breakthrough in a world, which is unpredictable, interconnected, and so on, to your question. So in fact, the vision, the goal, the purpose, is so important in these times. And it need not be a very large goal, right? You don't want to become a multinational with something doing extremely big. I think that is extremely important. The second the way to achieve a breakthrough, for a paradigm shift is, and I get back to this, we as leaders should now be more accountable, right? Be accountable. The buck should stop with the leader. It was always the case, but many times leadership has been seen as something that comes because of a number of years or experience, or, I deserve it. And that's the normal thing. But I think the buck stops here also is because very important if you want to achieve some breakthrough. Being decisive, and agile, that's very important. And you yourself said, the cultural transformation for being agile is required now in organizations. That is where you need speed. Obviously, now we know that speed is extremely important after this COVID experience. But speed with stability is what you need, really. It's just not a speed to do something and there's no stability. So making that organization agile is something extremely important, I think. And unleash the power of people. The people, the young talent, they can be leveraged. I mean, that's something. My organization, the average age, I kind of make it little words, is 34 years. And my job profile is like also like Reena's, a lot of operations. When you're shipping, you're 24/7, the ships are flying around the world. So you need to, I mean, you guys were enjoying the food at home or the e-commerce at home, and Amazon was making money, but it was the guys in those container ships, in those various ships, in that logistics piece, who are the real heroes there. So yeah, so that's the other thing, how do you unleash the power? The young people, they brought so much, and that's a great learning for me as well. In fact, with my HR team, we are completely revamping the performance management system. And actually, I'm working with a consultant group to figure out, they also don't know to really advise, how to revamp the PMS, performance management system. How do we do it differently? You keep reading about it, happens multiple times in some companies and all that. But we need to figure out these things. So yeah, that's about it. I think 4 or 5 things that I would think is very important at this point.
Sure, thanks, Amitabh. That's, I think, that again resonates a lot with what we've been hearing in the market as well. Prasoon, anything else that you would add to what other attributes a leader should possess to be able to facilitate breakthroughs in a rapidly changing dynamic world?
Well, I think leaders have to become part of the process. I think for long, leaders have sat in the corner office and asked for things to happen. Yeah. It's time. And I think this crisis has forced a lot of leaders like us to really go back to getting our hands dirty and, be a part of the process and build it along with the team. It's one thing to, put together, your thoughts and download it and say, we fine, let's move in this direction or let's get it done in this fashion. But as, Reena was saying, the challenge at operations end is very, very different. When you are actually getting things done, it's a different ballgame altogether. And I think rather than in such circumstances, rather than leaving it, to team downs and thinking it may happen or things may be taken care of, leaders now have to be involved and, drive things from the forefront, be at the forefront. It was always said it's nothing new as a wisdom, but, seldom practiced. It needs to be practiced, and I think that's one send that I would want to add to what Amitabh was saying, per se. The other thing that comes to my mind is it's for a leader. It's very, very important, to not only keep your team motivated, but also to have to constantly get buy-ins from your shareholders and your stakeholders. And Gaurav was mentioning that point, some time ago. That's to me, one of the things that a leader needs to drive far more often and far more vigorously now. It becomes very challenging practically to drive things when you might be wanting to steer the ship in a certain direction, but the forces that may provide you support may or may not be aligned completely to that. And it was okay in past because you could manage such situations. In a crisis context, when you are dealing with uncertainties, when you are dealing with a lot of challenges which you cannot define or can foresee, it's very important to keep that stakeholder along with you and to have that direction set in motion. else it will not work. So these are two things I would wish to add.
Great, Prasoon. Thank you so much. Sanchita, I'd like to pick up one aspect of what we have seen as obstacles in any transformation, real life on the ground, given your experience. So I want to ask you that, teams and employees can be very hesitant or have inertia in adopting newer models and processes and change. And that's a very, very real challenge that we see around us. How do we as leaders create the right environment and culture which ensures that employees can proactively and very, comfortably embrace this change?
What Prasoon said is very true. You need to be shown as a part of a process. If you're bringing innovative changes into an organization, suddenly decided to do all underwriting of retail businesses through digital mode, then to bring the team along with you, it is critically important that you believe yourself into it, and you maximum communication that you do and should speak about it. The two things which I learned in this whole pandemic is, one is communication, which is extremely important. Keep communicating with them, keep them believing in it, keep them believing in the purpose of it, keep them believing in the need of the hour. And the need of the hour is survival. If survival is extremely important, and if the survival is not going to happen because you're not bringing in changes, you're not transforming yourself, you're not seeing a paradigm shift, then how would an organization grow? And that is something which one need to believe as a leader. And as a leader, he need to, or she need to communicate it constantly with the team, which is extremely important in this situation. And the paradigm shift, where are we moving? Which direction are we moving? You need to keep consulting. You need to take them along into your thought process. So when you are deciding something, when we are deciding about some changes, take them along with the discussion, make them feel like this is their decision also. They are part of the decision also. And that's when they'll start believing in you, believing in the, the transformation that you're bringing in. Otherwise, it's definitely a challenge. So, it's important that you make them part of the decisioning, make them part of, come out of the corner cabin that Prasoon said. In the team's meeting, there's nobody in the corner cabin, So bring them along with you and make them feel they're part of it is extremely important. Communication, regular communication to bring them onto the table. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a very important aspect of this is, how do you communicate this change in a way that, resistance to this change is minimal. So I think communication is absolutely very important. And also the kind of messaging that you are bringing to the communication is also very critical. So that employees also understand that, they're not the only ones in this. I think leaders are as much as a part of the problem as they themselves are. So I think that's very aptly put.
Yeah, keep them motivated, when there's some communication they are bringing it on the table during the discussion, motivate them, energize them by, being, recognizing, rewarding them on whatever they're saying, even in a meeting, is something which will bring them, inspire others also to participate in that discussion. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Now, one of the biggest impacts of the COVID-19 and the transformation and the pent-up demand going up, and tech talent making a big comeback, and tech-enabled businesses making a huge growth in the market has been the high attrition. Attrition was 20% last year, which is the highest in a decade. It's largely hovered around 15-16%. But at 20% last year and possibly going up higher this year. We all know what's happening out there in the talent market. The Great Resignation, a term coined in the US, but the Great Resignation there has largely meant people leaving work to pursue other areas and possibly taking time off, and also not necessarily working and focusing on their mental well-being and health and picking up things they like doing. In India, the Great Resignation has actually become the Great Reshuffle, where people are moving from one industry to the other or one company to the other. It is not common for all of us to hear, and the students of IIT Kharagpur will be glad to know that on an average, most people who have tech talent or digital talent seem to have on an average 4 to 5 offers at any point of time. What we are seeing today in the market is that you have people who are going to be waiting for the last day and then get one more offer and then go to somebody else. I'm seeing it, my clients are seeing it, any client you go to has the same problem. Attrition, how do I manage it? Because it's an unending war for talent and it can't be won by money. So Gaurav, let me start with you. In this, is this, first of all, is this era truly an era of great resignation or great shuffle? And as leaders, how are you planning for this chaos which has hit us like a tsunami in the last 1 year?
Well, I think, I think 2-3 things, this was said earlier, but I'll say it again, this too shall pass, and that's what will happen. I come from, prior to Kantar, I was with EY, and there are these 4 consulting firms, EY, PwC, Deloitte, KPMG, and they always had this rotation, they always had this rotation. In consulting firms, there was a typical term used to, kitne mein ho aaya hai? How many have you been to? And so just that the proportion of that move became much higher now. Everybody was, and why it happened? Because these consulting firms really make you slog like anything. They make you work hard like anything. There's another term that I'll put. They say that they follow the principle of 1, 2, 3. So which means they get one person, they pay for equivalent to that for 2 people, and then they get work done equivalent to what 3 people would do.
3 people would do.
So in these period of times, everybody took that 2 and went to the 3 back again. So the 3 was constant. The 1 was also constant, but the 2 factor changed, increasing costs of organization. That's typically what has really happened. I think the basic and this is not the first time. I come from over 2 decades in the IT industry with TCS, and we saw it at the time Y2K. We saw it in the mid 90s. At mid 90s were the times when PCs and computers were coming in, and there was some software. Software was a very small division of any IT company. IT companies were largely hardware driven in India, and then this Y2K led to a huge boom and requirement for IT engineers. So anybody who did a 3-month course with an IIT went to become an IT engineer and went to the US. And India was, there was no talent. This again happened when the IT outsourcing industry in early 2000s started changing. So I think this has constantly happened. You will at some point in time not be able to prevent it. And I think the basic facts remain: how deeply you have engaged with employees, who are the critical employees to run your business, how much focused you are them, and how much have they bought into your purpose and your vision, and how deeply they feel involved in an organization. That's the essence of it. If I think it's my business, then I will not leave. And that's the passion that if you're as a leader, if you're able to create. And let me tell you, this is all pure English as well. It doesn't work. I've had very deeply engaged employees involved with me who still decided to move on. Who I never thought would move on will still move on. Because these disruptions have also led people to go back to the fundamentals of life and think. We were all running, and then we had time to sit back and think, is this what I want to do? And then I've had very committed employees come back and say, no, sir, this is not what I wanted to do. You made me do it for 15 years. No more. I think I am wanting to do something different. So I think, that ability, agility comes into place. Your ability to quickly get talent, to get them up to speed. If that happens, your personal intent as a leader to work hard and to acknowledge and to work with your people will work. So all those basics, that bit extra will come into place. There's no set standard formula that we'll be able to ever help. At least in my career, 3 to 4 times I've seen it, that it has happened, and it has happened at a very massive pace that is uncontrolled. Live with it. What has really happened also is the fact that somebody took our talent, we took somebody else's talent, and we paid 30 or 40% more for it. So organizations will see a heightened cost of doing business also, because we wanted equally talented people. So if our competition took it, we got it from our competition, the other way around. It is also good from a people force perspective, if you ask me. We've had, organizations have started to learn to respect their workforce much more than they were doing. You come from an HR organization, they've decided to respect, they've realized that there's respect for workforce that has come much more in. I would not name the organization, but one of the biggest names in India, again a multinational, sent an email from their chairman to everybody saying that if you have issues, even if it means this and salary increase, please go and talk to your leader, because they had the coffers full having not paid, and they were wanting to pay more. So I think that deeper understanding, engagement with employees will certainly help, but will not prevent it. From an organization's perspective, this may not have been great, but from an industry perspective, I think it's very good. There's also something else that happened. People that I thought I wanted that they should quit, finally got a job and quit, which was also something good that happened. So, I think it's a mixed bag of things. And overall, it's a time of change. This too shall pass. Organizations resilience will continue, and all these factors will come into play. Multiple factors will come into play.
Can I make
it? Yeah. No, thanks, Gaurav. And I know everybody will have a fair amount of perspective on this. Let me turn this a little bit when I go to Sanchita. Some people say that the ongoing talent uprising is reflective of some of the hits and misses on part of leaders, in the sense that they could have done something preemptively or proactively to prevent this, because many people are not leaving only for money, but also because they felt that the employers were not nice or good enough to them during a tough time. So do you think that some of the leaders failed to preempt this trend, that when things would go better, people would start going out, and could have done more to make sure that they were retained?
So there are a couple of reasons why people have left. One is the most important thing, and I think Gaurav also touched upon it, and Prasoon also, people have burned out in this pandemic. The first 1 year, that is 2020, and first half of 2021. Huge team meetings, daily team meetings, number pressures, work pressure, family not well. Financially, they are feeling, insecure also. So they were completely burned out. And when you are burned out, what you want to do is you want to shift your paddle and move to a different organization. The second thing which I think has happened is people have found a different purpose. So somebody who was having a good business as a, maybe a CX of an organization, or maybe a second level of an organization, decided to completely shift the gear and go into, some other business, because he found that there's a purpose out there in doing it, or maybe going for some social cause. I've come across so many of my friends who have moved out for some social cause. So they want to do somebody wants to come up with schools, somebody wants to work into healthcare for the, people who have suffered through pandemic. But other thing which is very important, which has happened in this, and where is the leadership team has to play a very proactive role, is there are innovative thought processes. They thought there are innovations available, can be done. There are different way of doing business. There's a digital intervention, there's technological development which is happening, played by the big IPO of Paytm, Zomato, and all that. People thought value in their decisioning and their thought process, and they thought they can move out and do something of their own by setting up a small, digital innovation, or coming out with their own thought process. So there are many organizations who realize this, and as a leader, if given an opportunity, if you are, the management has the same thought process, it's better to incubate them into your organization, because they bring more value on the table than letting them going out of the system and doing some innovation which could be it's loss of purpose for the organization, where the innovation could be, the employee has worked here and he's only thought of the processes here. So many organizations and many leaders have decided to go ahead and to incubate these thoughts by putting some equity, giving financial support to these employees so that they work in the organization, as well as, incubate and develop their thought processes, come out with the new innovative, digital disruptive processes. So as a leader, it is important that, as I said, the first solution to the first problem, which is a burnout, is having empathy. It's not needed to have a call till 9 o'clock in the evening and having a Sunday team call. No need to show that your employees are working so hard, because maybe as a leader, I'm not working hard. So, don't do that. Have an empathy. And for people with different purpose who have moved out because I want to do some social cause, that's something you can't handle. That the leader, you can't do much about it. But those who have a digital disruption in mind and they want to bring some innovative processes into the system, if you can incubate them, or if you can channelize their thought process into the organization, for the growth of the organization and the growth of the individual, that's what a leader needs to see. If there is an employee, so always, and as a Tata, we have believed into innovation as one of the key driver of the group, and as a leaders, we believe that innovation is the key driver of the group, and innovation can't be done by the leader. The innovation is done by the team, the people, the working out there, and how you support them into innovation. How do you bring them in the front table, and how you bring them on the table for discussion, and develop the technology and develop the processes where your success will depend as a leader. So, going along with the team and helping them into bringing the disruption into the system is something which as a leader one need to look into. Yeah.
Absolutely. Great points, Sanchita. Leena, now I need to come to you. Obviously, the pain of attrition is real for you. You spoke about it, and the pain of being able to hire people also is very real for you, given what is happening in the market and the high pressure work that your team has been doing. So we spoke about reasons why people are leaving. Now, if I flip it around to say that there's the fierce war for talent, we all know that, and organizations are losing people in spite of high increases in compensation, and many large companies, startups are paying a lot of money, which is not really possible in the long run to sustain, right? Obviously, firms have to compete by providing more than just financial incentive, and many of these things can go beyond monetary areas as well, right? Which can get people to come and also stay in the kind of environment that we are seeing. So what is it that you as leaders are trying to bring into play more than just compensation to not only retain people, but also to attract people, because it's obviously a very difficult market outside? Leena, you're on mute.
Well, sorry for that. So here it is, why people are leaving. As we were all talking about, we being innovative, we all have work, okay. There are different reasons that we have figured out, okay. So instead of worrying why people are leaving, we need to look forward for looking at what make them to stick with us. What should we do to make them stick with us? Why should they stay with the organization that we are in? Is it because we are paying well, or is it like a straightforward offer? Okay, if you go to Swiggy, you might get 20% hike by default. No, this is not what it is. What makes an employee stick with you is about the engagement that we are bringing in, the value of that engagement. I would put it like which says engagement with an impact. That makes an employee stick, no matter whatever it is. So here, as a leader in Swiggy, at least what I have seen, we used to have a schedule, right? So we most of us started spending time in attending meetings and everything. But suddenly we have seen half our meetings are with HR, okay? And we're like, okay, engagement is good, but don't do too much of engagement, right? How are you sure that, this is really driving the right impact? So when I say about engagement, when we reach out to people and understand what engagement means to you, is there are two ways. One, are they really enjoying the work that they're doing? Do they see a vision for a long run in the work that they're doing? So when we put people in different layers, right? The executive layer, and then a mid-level and a senior level. The execution layer is actually the backbone, right? So you need to make them do. So if I am asking somebody to just take a hard copy of a menu and enter into the system and keep doing it, what do I do really to engage the person or see a long picture, right? So I need to really understand as a company, take a call. This is not the focus area of my company. right? So we need to come up with something to let go that in a very graceful manner, either be digitized or maybe let better people handle this. Like we started working with agencies who just start working and executing or giving us the work on the ground level. So we only started looking at people who are really bringing that strategy into place or making an impact, and they are enjoying the impact that they are bringing in. That's one, in terms of engaging with impact. And then what we also understood is when we keep saying change is good, okay, in early days, especially in operations, this happens is, ma'am, I need to work from home today. I'm like, take a leave. Okay, why do you want to work from home? Because you can't work from home. You have rest of other responsibilities to do. That's why you want to stay back at home. So don't say work from home, just take a leave. So now when we are asking them to work from home, right, they really tasted their own medicine of work from home is not the real thing. We want to come back to office. So when we have shown a change, that change can't be constant. We need to make some changes here and there. So when we say employees, okay, you want to work from home, now we as a Swiggy decided next 3 months we will work from home, and then figure out maybe another 3 months we want to come back in the work and work. But that is not solving the problem, because people are moving to their hometowns and they want to vacate from the place that they're working in. So adopting to the change is taking time, but it is going to happen. So in this time period when we are asking people to adopt the newness that we have brought in, it is also creating a bit of chaos. That is another thing. And as a leaders, we have a talent. And what I have seen majorly is we can use towards cross training or cross mapping or making the person, like say I come from an operations, but I explore towards supply chain, because my experience just didn't stop at one place saying, okay, I will only take care of the operations. My experience has evolved saying, okay, while I'm doing my core job, let my employee also learn something where his area of interest lies, where he sees a future, or where we can put him up later. So cross-training the employees within the processes that we have is very important, because doing the monotonous work constantly will also not let the person enjoy what they're doing. And you need to show them a change, and that change could be more meaningful if you are circulating with interest and circulating within the processes that we have built, letting them explore and work towards things. I think these are the main things that we as an organizations are keeping in place, apart from just giving monetary benefits for anybody who wants change or trying to retain it. Are they fitting to the values that we have built? Everything that we are driving, is it in alignment to the value that we are looking forward for? So that is being one of the key factors.
That's a lot of smart points, Reena. I think a lot of this is real life example that you brought out. I think it's all very well for us to say that, great resignation, people are leaving, and, maybe many of us are using the same lens to look at all of them, right? And throwing money at them or something else. I think it's important for us to figure out execution layer, leadership layer, middle management layer. What are they leaving for? What are their motivations? What are their challenges? And then how do you actually design retention plans or schemes, right, to make sure that people are able to stay? I think that's a very, very pertinent point. Picking on from the last point that you said about working from home, which is now becoming a norm, we now quickly should move on to our last section, which is talking about future of work. Now, the future of work itself is a bit of a misnomer, because the future of work is actually here. What we are in today is what we used to call as future of work, but now it's become the present of work. The way we are working, the way we have learned to work, and the way possibly we'll be, we will need to change to work, is something we thought would come sometime in the future, but it's very much here. And the faster we're able to embrace that change, the better for all of us, right? Amitabh, again, you've seen a very diverse set of operations, and of course, this new way of working is going to pose challenges for an industry like yours, right? So if I were to simply look at this whole aspect of the world being divided on the who, how, when of return to work, hybrid, non-hybrid, remote, how are you solving this? or how is it impacting you, or are you able to see a straightforward solution to work with this sort of model going forward?
Yeah, so the future of work, like you said, it is today in the present, right? So here we don't want to take any leadership role per se as a company, right? So we want to see what's happening, and being in a in a global city like Singapore, which is the for example, and we have offices in India, in Mumbai and Calcutta as well. There is a lot of things that we see what's happening, how the financial center here, which is after City of London, this is the next one, Wall Street, City of London, and then GFC here. So we are watching what's happening here, how are people reacting to it, how are people going there. So there is something that we see how they're doing, but it looks like it will be a hybrid model. For all the right reasons, it will be a hybrid model. People will work from home. There is a lot of merit, you save on travel time. Young couples have time with their children and, walk the dog. And Singapore has, and many places, many youngsters also very health conscious, right? So go to the gym, and so they find that flexibility extremely important now. And so that's happening. But what's happening is interesting with the middle management and the senior management of the company. This whole issue of trust, are they working when they're at home? Is he cycling by the riverside at 11 in the afternoon, or is he actually doing something? This trust deficit, because of non-face time, is a challenge for me as the kind of managing director here, right? To really see, because it's not about a yes or a no decision, right? Between the employees, right, or my middle manager is right. We don't know really, So it's not about that. So the face time is an issue, and that is something that we need to figure out how that trust gets built, and so one. Clearly, what we are trying to do today is making this whole thing very outcome and result driven culture, right? So if the outcome is there, then where is the trust deficit? How does it matter where that he or she is working from if you still get the outcome, right? So we are trying to do that, but the result driven culture is, when you're trying to drive through results, some outcomes, it's not easy for employees, because employees, not everyone is result oriented. The wheat from the chaff gets very quickly segregated. Then the managers start saying that, okay, these are the set of people who can deliver from anywhere, and these are the set of people. So wheat from the chaff starts happening. And that's a challenge for a lot of employees who have not grown in a certain way this organization or their managers wants them to see. So this is a challenge, and this is something very interesting challenge, actually an opportunity, like we say, I can hire someone from Kenya and not, pay him the Singapore, 66,000 per capita income kind of a salary. I'm just giving an example. And, and you can get the best brains from there. So outsourcing was always there. India, like we have benefited a lot, right? $150 billion of outsourcing happening from India. But this, where you get talent from anywhere in the world who can work for you, is something, a reality, and we are really looking at it. It has its own challenge because the culture issue is lost, right? And someone said Tata's. I mean, for companies like ours, and NYK Japan, which is also a 150-year-old company, $22 billion. So the culture is very deeply, we want people to have a certain culture if you want to work with us. And we hire people with a certain culture, so that building that culture becomes an issue if you have people from anywhere you are trying to look at. So that remains a challenge, how do you do it? But from an organization side, how do we improve our value proposition to attract people, right? Like all of you mentioned, this gig economy has thrown up so many challenges, and I think so many opportunities, again, if like we discussed, Rupang, before, that we must bring in our company example. So I will bring one here. I had this very guy from NIT Durgapur, and I am Shillong, I think. Yeah, he was my executive assistant. Yeah, so one day he came and he said that, listen, Amitav, great stuff and all that. So shipping is great. I love it. I want to get into cryptocurrency, and I have some ideas. Yeah, and I want to put in my papers. Yeah, so he was so it was like a challenge to really see what he's doing. And what we did, we saw that there is a lot of things in the supply chain where blockchain really works, right? And we're just trying to testing it, and crypto is blockchain. So we're just testing it out. So can we give something to this guy so that he can do something for my company itself, and can we retain him somewhere? So that's a piece that we took on how to retain someone in this economy. And let's remember one thing, today knowledge is very easily available. You don't need to go to any college, to gain any specific knowledge or a skill set. That's really absolutely amazingly, it has, proliferated. And other than, what's China has kind of got down on because of common prosperity of President Xi Jinping. Otherwise, Baiju and all, I mean, knowledge is like so easily online available. And in this last 2-3 years, people have built so many set of knowledge set where you don't actually need to go to many colleges to do that. How do you harness that? How do you build into that in your culture? Do you make those sufficient environment within your organization where people can still work and do what they think they are good at, and at the same time ensure it is within the boundary of, let's say, Tata NYK's overall corporate objectives? Or do you want to get out? I mean, a few days back, someone came to me and said that, listen, Amitav, I want to get into carbon trading. I said, wow, that's great. I mean, shipping is a very carbon emitter, right? So trading is, if you do the carbon certificate trading that happens in Europe, and which will come to the rest of the world, there is a lot of, business to be done there. So he wants to get into that. And he wants to build some predictive modeling around it and get into that. So we said, yeah, here's $100,000, for you. Why don't you try that? And let's start building a set of skill set here. So these are the ways, Rupank, just to give some insights from within our company, how we are trying to manage this process.
Makes a lot of sense. And I think you've covered a lot of the aspects. I'll quickly just ask Prasoon if he has anything that he sees as challenges for leaders, that will arise in a world where the hybrid mode of work is being increasingly preferred, and going ahead also, even if the pandemic ends, there is a lot of debate on the fact that this should be a way of life. There has to be a flexibility and an option for this. So do you see this? I mean, there are opportunities, but there are also going to be challenges. How do you manage hybrid meetings? How do you have different sets of policies for people who are working from home and who are coming into office, right? So as leaders, what do you think these could be, and how would you overcome them?
Well, there's a big fundamental question here. I think many employees who are seeking work from home or other kind of flexibilities, they do not understand one fundamental thing, which is most businesses are not organized in a manner in which they can work in hybrid or remote working environments. For these things to become reality, a lot of businesses and organizations have to completely restructure and realign themselves. And that is not going to be easy. Technology will play a crucial role there in terms of enabling as much as possible the work and the remote working and everything else. But as we were also talking about culture as being one of the important factors. How does one ensure that in such cases you are binding everyone through one culture and everyone is showing those value traits? So it's not easy to come by. Having said that, it's a reality, and I think it's an irreversible process now. Today in my team, just 1.5 years of work, these challenges. The team which was sitting at one place together and working, the team is working out of 7 different cities and trying to deliver on the same or similar business agenda. How will it be possible for it to become permanent? How will it be possible for it to run smoothly? And how would you drive efficiencies in such a environment? These are questions which need to be dealt at multiple levels. We were discussing about attrition and people leaving and salaries going multifold and cost to companies increasing and everything else. We have to accept one reality. There's a fundamental shift that has happened in human behavior, our behavior, as a result of this crisis. All of us want to live in today now. No one is really sitting with a very, very long-term horizon and translating into corporate career. I think the model that Unilever so proudly built of building executive career path, that's something that has got completely disrupted. And increasingly you see organizations putting youngsters in charge of many projects where many seasoned professionals are reporting in, are part of, and so on and so forth, with adequate support system. Now this behavior change, this philosophical change that we have all of us have undergone, where we want to do things today. We do not want to live with a certainty of tomorrow. And also that has led to one interesting development that is happening all around us, which is what probably Sanchita was talking about, which is people are far more open and inclined to follow their heart today. And this is something which you may or may not recognize today, but it's going to impact the way you are going to get workforce of future into organizations. If you do not give opportunities for youngsters today, where they can follow their passion, where they can follow their heart, and where they're doing something that that they really wanted to do, it will be very, very difficult to sustain and build accordingly. And so a lot of these things are absolute fundamental changes, and that churn is something that all of us are likely to go through, are going through, and very, very difficult to predict how it's going to end. But all I can say is a lot of it looks very, very positive in lot many sense.
Fantastic, Prasun. Thank you so much for that. I know we are actually we are actually short ahead of time. We need to finish our session. And I also know that there are a bunch of questions that students have asked, which I certainly want to pose to our panelists, but I just have one last question. And I will go with Sanchita. If you could talk a little bit about this important part, which I think remains the future of work. Has this pandemic enhanced or depleted the whole diversity and inclusion agenda in our economy? What are your candid views on this?
Can you repeat the question once again, Rupak?
Question is that, has this pandemic in the last 2-3 years, has it actually enhanced, improved, or depleted or reduced the diversity and inclusion agenda in the economy that companies have had? What are your views on this?
So, inclusion agenda was always there, whether it is an economy or it's a company which is part of retail businesses, B2C businesses, and it's going to be, it's come in the front edge. And, so if you look at I would not spend time talking about it because this is not the agenda to do it. But if you look at the union budget, there's more spoken about inclusion growth. And if you look at our business vertical as a leader, if I'm already into tier 1 cities and I see that there is an opportunity, I will go to tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So be it Zomato or Swiggy. Sorry, I spoke about Zomato, but Swiggy also. And this is for Reena. you would have already been into tier 1 cities, you will move to tier 2 or tier 3 cities. So that's a financial inclusion. And about, just style also. And for all of us, be it, where we are into B2C business vertical, more and more financial inclusion, more and more growth towards bringing affordable housing, bringing economic growth. And Government of India has also come out with some fundamental, policy changeovers, which brings in, financial inclusion, like, CGTMSC program, or Manrega, or something like CGC, government guarantee scheme, and all these programs. So financial inclusion is the fundamental, and moving from city 1 to city 2 to city 3 category of cities is going to be the future of the retail business. And I'm sure all of us are gearing towards moving to. Sooner we will see these retail businesses, or these retail chain, or marketplaces are present and providing services in small towns, like very, very small towns, like Bokaro or Dhanbad, or Durgapur, or small town like Batti, where you do not have these available today, but it will be. So and then financial inclusion, when we speak about it, more and more, the people who are in the mass laws of hierarchy, where in the lower pyramid, are going to get involved into the business growth plans, business development plans. Today, already a lot of retail financiers are providing loans to these economy, lower in the segment of economy people also. Maybe the rate of interests are very high, because the rate and return are linked to where they need to be linked in together, because the risk is very high in this type of asset lending, but people are doing it. So there is going to be, your Parchunwala also getting a loan, your cobbler at the corner of the shop road, which is having a shop, is going to get the loan, and the person who is having a agribusiness sitting into a small town, in a small village, into some part of Punjab, will also be getting loan and financial support and financial inclusion. And government will come up with schemes. And if it is government is doing it, and if we as a financier, we are not there taking the part in the pie, which is the largest part of the pie, then we are losing somewhere. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sanjita. I think that's very useful. I now actually wanted to quickly toggle over to some of the questions that the students have sent prior to the panel. And there are a few which have already been specifically addressed to some of the panelists. So I will start with those, and then we'll pick up a few, and then we'll see who's best positioned. So in the next 10-15 minutes, let's try and see how many of these we can answer. The first question is for Amitabh. The question is that Tata NYK Shipping is a joint venture between an Indian and a Japanese company. What proactive steps can such a company take to ensure that cultural sensitivity / awareness is promoted amongst the employees?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. I think it's a very, very relevant question, and something that we grapple with very much. So one of the key things that when you're working in a multicultural company or a multicultural environment, is that the company should have a culture of its own, right? Should have its own value proposition itself, and you can build it over a period of time, or you can borrow it from something, but you must have your own culture, right? And then what you do, so let's say I have a Britisher with me, he aligns his values to this culture, right? Or you kind of hire a person who is culturally aligned. So again, we said somewhere, I think Prasun made it, so that whole objective of the organization, the culture objective, the business objective, the business strategy, the corporate objective, there needs to be some alignment in which people think that I can also fit in. So that's the best way to go about it, instead of trying to, meet a Japanese culture separately, British culture separately, or an Indian or a Singaporean or a Malaysian. That doesn't work. So your own organization should have a culture, right culture, where others fit in. Did I answer your question in some form?
No, I think that does, Amitabh. Thank you so much for that. Okay, we have two questions for Reena. I mean, there are two, so I'll just try and combine them into one, so that is easier for you to frame your thoughts. So there's, I mean, they're not exactly overlapping. The first question is that today innovation is a key for any organization to spread its wings. Going forward, what innovations can we expect in the food delivery ecosystem, especially from Swiggy? And the second question is, with the massive growth of Swiggy, how has the operations evolved to enable the quality of service that Swiggy provides? So you can decide which one do you want to go with first. I leave it to you.
Okay, let me talk about innovation because I think that would also kind of give the quality of innovations that we're doing.
Sure.
Okay, so I'll pick up one example of having a purpose. As I said, we are an online delivery company, and we are there with already a presence in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and other cities. How innovation, what kind of new innovations that we are bringing here is more of a user experience based innovations. It's more, instead of looking forward for a growth related, during this whole pandemic, what we understood is no matter what we are doing, end of the day, if we are not driving the experience, and that is what is going to break the entire business. So the innovation that you can expect from how Swiggy is going to do with new business units coming in place, there are a lot of things going in the back end. There are a lot of new things that you can see where Swiggy is coming up to in scaling up the Instamart that we have right now. Already you guys have seen in the last 2 years from just two cities from Delhi and Mumbai. Now we are across pan India, almost serving within 30 minutes. You might have not seen the innovation, but the innovations in the operations is how we are connecting these dots, how we are connecting these dots everywhere in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities, where digitization is still a new thing, where people are yet to adopt this. So we are trying to work on that. And yes, while the business is picking up, or let's say while we are innovating a lot of new things, how we are ensuring on quality, we are mostly depending on product quality of two things. One, what you're seeing, which is the content and the data, the entire piece, what you see in terms of quality. And two, one is which is running behind, which is if you're ordering a food from a restaurant, if you ordered a veg item, how did a non-veg item got delivered? How deliberately it has happened? How data-driven it was? So these are the other things which we are concentrating when we are talking about quality. So when I said user experience, right, there is two things which is very key for us right now is restaurant experience and the consumer experience. So this has to go hand in hand. When I say that, okay, as a customer, I got a non-veg item and I ordered a veg, I need to go back and look at the restaurant experience, how easily they are able to change this information which is on the website, or how easily they're able to read this information when they get these orders. So in the backend, yes, we are trying to build more of an automation using a data science model to put these things in place than a human intervention.
That's very helpful, Reena. And I must say that I use Swiggy a lot, and I'm quite impressed with your quality of operation. Even in peak times when there was no restaurants outside and everything was dependent on Swiggy, I think your quality and level of service was exceptional and consistent. So I think whatever you guys are doing, you're doing really well, and I think that's feedback I've heard from most people around.
That's great to hear. Especially in the last few months, if you see, Swiggy is not concentrating on tier 1, tier 2 because the business is already there. You would have seen the government encouraging us to be there with the tier 2, tier 3, tier 3 and tier 4 cities, like street vendors coming on board. So now when I onboard a street vendor, I see him in the center. I go and onboard him with the area called, area pin code some 56032. Now he moved his vendor cart to a different location and my delivery guy goes there and like, no, I don't see any street vendor there. So it's a challenging thing how we move the cart along with the geography that we are going to put it in the system. So this is basically the innovation that we want to really bring in place. Thank you so much for that, Rupang.
Great. Okay, let me move on to the next question, which I have identified. Now, it's a very simple question, but I think it's nevertheless, it can actually, raise quite a discussion and actually stir a lot of thought. The question is, as a leader, how do you take a call between taking a risk and breaking status quo, or the common way of dealing a situation? How do you decide which way to go? So why don't I go with you, Gaurav, to see if you have any perspective on this?
That's an interesting one, actually. Okay. So I think leadership styles are very personal. Actually, leadership is not a science. I think it's an art, in itself. And everybody follows, and the artist decides, what is his matrix of decision making, typically. I think in general, logically, it depends on any decision depends on various factors into play, and decision making is getting increasingly complex today, in the business world. But I think it's any decision today is a combination of set of figures that you analyze and get from the finance, a judgmental decision that you take as a leader, and your basic what this summit also said, character and attitude in life. In extremely tough situations, whether you are the one who wanting to take risks, or not, and that becomes basically from the way you've grown yourself as a person, whether you have risk-taking abilities, or you think you are one of those who wants to take those risks, and that's how you've evolved yourself. So I think it's always it's a combination of some scientific evaluation and decision making structures that we evolve, and sometimes a sense of gut feel, risk-taking ability, your character, your ethics, your whole attitude towards your business. Just to give you a little example, we were faced with a situation during the COVID period where we had one of the toughest projects of India tendered out. But the question was, we were short on business, whether we do it or not. It was so tough that we realized that if we fail, we lose money, and we lose money badly. But if we succeed, we make enough money to carry the year through. So, it's a, no amount of Excel sheet calculations could have told us whether it was right or wrong. It was your ability to put your neck on the block in front of your board, that had to decide on your ability and your gut to say that, well, yes, I will do it. That made us take the decision, and we did go ahead and take it. So I think it's a complex set of factors that are both personal, logical, that come into play in today's business environment. Things several years ago were very different. You could work on some Excels, you could work on some figures that you present, and you knew how to take them. But that's not the case today. That's the real world today.
Well, thanks so much, Gaurav. I think that was a very it was a simple question but a complex answer, and I think you made it sound quite logical and cohesive. So thank you so much for that.
Just add to what Gaurav was saying.
Yeah, Amita, please.
For these youngsters, it's very important to understand this whole concept, because this is how you build a life and career. So there is so what many times we call risk is actually a challenge, right? So we need to understand the difference between a challenge and a risk. So my thought when I built my career, I took up challenges, right? And so take up challenges in life. At best, you can make mistakes, right? If you take challenges, don't be scared to make mistakes. I think you learn a lot by making mistakes. Like they say, in the research world, if a research fails, then actually that's a learning, because second time you don't do that in science again, that research again. So, differentiate between risk and challenge. I have brought that to my corporate life as well. And like Gaurav said, not many times my board has been happy. But I do tell them that what is the risk and what is the challenge. And because I see this as a challenge and which can be solved, which, you have a team, you can go and do it. And obviously, we are not stupid. So taking risk at times can be stupidity of various kinds, but challenges, yes, you should look at challenges in life. Life is all about, challenges, and everyone has challenges, and that's the beauty. Go ahead and
I think, yeah, very interesting. But I just, if you permit, I just have to add, the decision between a risk and a challenge is also a gut feel sometimes. It doesn't come on a, you can't put it on an Excel and say, well, this is a risk or this is a challenge. It's your experience and your gut feel, which will tell you. Indeed, at this point, something interesting where I link back to future of work, and if you permit me a minute, is, we were talking of people who are wanting to do what they want all through, and that led to the great iteration. There's an interesting shift that's happening in India that I observe, which is important for businesses. I mean, there are people like us in this country who built some bit of comfort in life, and that our children take. Several of them have not traveled into public transport buses. Some of them don't even know what the heat is outside because they've stayed in ACs. And there's another breed that's coming from rural and tier 3, tier 4 towns that doesn't think whether this job is for me or not, because that's a need for them. They are at the lowest level of hierarchy, wanting to satisfy money, and that's a generation that's coming in and is exciting a worker, I would say today for corporate from a completely shift perspective.
Sure.
Can I add something, Rupang? I think
Yes.
especially with college people joining any of the organizations, okay, we are all in a place where we don't know what we want to do down the lane. After having a 10 years of experience, we suddenly wants to change to a different industry and take a risk or a challenge. There are two things: career is different and passion is different. Sometimes passion and career can work together. And sometimes you need to know the difference between both of it, and at what time you need to take that risk of doing that with the right set of experience. And as a leaders, right, at least I am one of the youngest among everyone over here, and I work with all young minds who just came out of college, their tantrums, sorry to say that, but yes, their negotiations and all. What I see is you always have options. Okay, you need to stick with something if you really believe in, you have a learning, or you believe in the vision that you have, or when you join somewhere, you need to have certain principles that you need to abide to in identifying what are your principles and what are those principles that are in alignment with the companies that you're choosing to work with. And you need to just stick by with the trust. Like if you look at Amitabh sir or Sanchita ma'am, they're like 20 years, 25 years working in the same companies. Nobody's talking about layoffs here. They're like, no, we worked for 25 years. So I think you need to make wise choices with multiple opportunities that you have in front. And, that's one of the advice that I have for whoever is looking out right after college.
Well, thanks so much, Reena. And I know we are just about on time, but I still try to squeeze in another one or two questions. And I wanted this one for maybe Prasoon. The question is that, rapid and unpredictable changes are transforming the business environment, disrupting supply chain, shifting markets. Promising markets are disappearing suddenly. How can companies adapt an agile mindset to cope up with this situation?
Well, companies need to be nimble. Companies need to have an outlook to manage uncertainties. And I think this is another big learning that all of us have learned during last couple of years. And today, in any business plan, I think the element of risk, the element of uncertainty is something that is getting well built in. And companies need to foster a culture of innovation. And if I think, these things are done right, then any challenge, any uncertainty, or any shifting paradigm can always be managed or mitigated to a large extent. And And so the companies of future, I think, will not be, to my mind, very rigid industry focused or industry specific organizations. I think organizations of future will be defined by a lot of these traits, and it will be irrespective of what categories or industries that they are operating in. And technology will ensure that a lot of those boundaries that used to be there, between different industries, verticals, etc., they all get demolished. And today, for example, tech platforms can get into virtually any business overnight, right? And so it's not important to therefore have decades of industry learning to really build a certain business today. Technology is in a way disrupting it and democratizing a whole lot of things in process. A lot of these things are a big factor when we are looking at future, when we are glancing at future. And I keep giving this example. There was a time when there was marketing used to be a linear equation. Okay, there was a manufacturer of product and services. There was a messaging platform, and then there was a receiver of those messages. It was a very linear way of doing things. Technology has disrupted it completely. Today, the consumer, is the messenger. The messaging platforms themselves, at times, become the arbiter. And today, companies and organizations do not need a middle man or an arbiter in between to say so, to reach out to consumers. You can reach out to consumers directly, right? So everything has got unshackled, unbroken, and that's the future we are staring at.
Thank you so much, Prasoon. And I think maybe the last question that we'll take, maybe Sanchita, you could take this. The question is, to achieve breakthroughs, most of the companies face difficulty in getting employees with matching skill sets. What would be your take on this?
I think what happens often is often we end up not realizing what is required from that particular job. And as a leader, if you are not able to identify what is the job requirement is and what is that output that you require from the job and what is the skill set that you need to match it well. And if you're not able to match it well, you will always have this error. And I'll take the liberty of explaining a situation wherein, we had a colleague who had joined in, and we had somebody had interviewed him and he had come into on role, and when he came to work with me, I realized he has a lot of, I was then into credit risk. Credit risk is, underwriting part of it, of wholesale banking side, and he could not write in English. He could just not write a good, statement on financial analysis of a borrower. And I was seeing that there was a complete mismatch into his role. So as a leader, when immediately I could not have, this solution is a layoff, but that's not the solution. The solution is if the person has an ability of, doing something different and something better. So I realized, I went through his CV, I spoke to him, I called him and I spoke to him, and I realized that he comes from a wonderful retail background of sales, and he could do a good work as a retail salesperson. Then as a leader, it's my responsibility to hold the hand of the guy and take him to the department where he can work well. So I had to just, re-engineer the whole thing and get him into retail business, and he could do well. So the basic reason for, there's a mismatch is this. And today in this world of digitization, wherein, so much of new things are happening, if you're not getting a person who has also a mindset of, going towards digitization onboarded, it's very difficult to get work done through him. And it's very difficult to make him part of the process. And there is where is a challenge. So when you are recruiting person and when we are recruiting employee, it is just not what is required today. It is also the future of the organization. the paradigm shift which the organization is facing. Where is the paradigm shift? Where is it moving? Is also important to look into it when you are matching the resource for the specific role. Just to add on a line on what Prasoon was speaking. So when this 2008 meltdown happened, we all said that, we have been doing good job. We did not had a bad asset in our balance sheet. We as a company did not had, any, and because we were doing lending in a very theoretical and historical processes, which were there, meeting the customer, doing financial analysis, doing good lending. But today in this current pandemic, what we did, we have to unlearn to learn something different, which is called digitization. You need to do it differently. So what was expected or what was learned as one of the best practices in those days is to be completely unlearned, and you need to do the same thing in a different process, in a different method. So you have to completely disrupt the whole way that you have thought. Unlearn to learn something new.
That's very well said, Sanchita, and a good way to, I think, sign off this discussion. And I mean, there were a bunch of other questions, but I think we have covered them. And honestly, I think we have 7 minutes above the time that we were supposed to finish. So I'd like to end the panel discussion here right now. And honestly, I must say, I moderate panels, but they've always been not more than 1 hour. And I had my concerns thinking that 90 minutes is going to be a bit much. We'll probably run out of conversation, or probably it will get too boring. And I think the conversation was interesting enough and energizing enough to just carry on, and we could probably have gone on for another half an hour. But I've gone enough time. But I want to thank all the panel members for the wonderful insights and rich experience that has come across. I think the experience that some of you have across industries and across businesses, Amitabh, Gaurav, Prasoon, Sanchita, has been fantastic. It's a big learning for me. Reena, I'm a big fan of Swiggy and a loyal customer, so it's been wonderful hearing about how you're managing operations and making customers like me so happy and so engaged going forward. So it's been a big learning for me, and I hope for all the students we've been able to cover some very relevant insights which center around disruption and leadership. And to the panel, I hope I've been inclusive enough to ensure that everybody has got a chance to speak. As I said, I would not interrupt anybody and give you your space and time. And I hope you enjoyed the panel as much as I did moderating all of you.
So on behalf of the panel, Rupank, let me just thank you. I think it was a very well structured discussion, and that's the reason why it did not get boring. And I think we are short on time, actually. We could have discussed so much more. There's so much more to share and discuss. Very exciting, and really all kudos to you for structuring it the manner in which you have. So cheers to you.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And wonderful.
Really made it very interesting. Actually.
Yeah.
And wishing the IIT VGSoM team a very good success and a brilliant career ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, folks. And over to you guys.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Rupank sir, and all of the guests for this insightful session. We really had a great experience, and we would like to take this opportunity to express our heartfelt gratitude to all of the panelists. We appreciate you taking the time to address all of our concerns and answers and provide answers which satisfy our inquisitive minds.
From today's erudite discussions, we learned that embracing and adjusting to change, gently reconstructing one's views and approach, and reconsidering rebound techniques have become the key components for succeeding in this disrupt world. We offer our deepest thanks to our respected panel whose views and insights have enlightened us. We are also grateful to Professor Nayagan, our respected Dean, and all of our faculty members for their presence and unconditional support. Finally, we would like to express our gratitude to our enthusiastic audience, without whom the Leadership Summit 2022 would not have been possible.
To wrap up the day's events, we would like to thank you all for making time out of your Saturday afternoon to be a part of this momentous occasion. Today, we end on a high note, promising to keep presenting you with new and interesting ideas. Ladies and gentlemen, we bid adieu. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Good luck and have a bright career ahead of all of you.
Thank you to the dean and all the,
And thanks, Rupang, for organizing it. It was not monotonous at all because the way you were made,
That's because of your responses. I had shared questions.
You were not which is most important. Yeah, so thank you so much. Thank you to the team and the organizing team. It's wonderful and wish you all a brilliant career ahead of you.
Now we can proceed with the faculty interaction. Nayagan sir, would you please share your experiences on the panel discussion today?
Okay. Actually, we are very thankful to all the panel members for having such a wonderful discussion on various aspects of leadership. And I hope whatever the discussion carried out would help our young managers or the young students to understand how to go about this type of changes in the real practice. So what they are learning in the class may be different than what the actual practice which is required in the field. So I hope this discussion will bring a lot of inputs, and accordingly they will be able to do their actual practice when they join the company. So that's what I want to convey my thoughts, and I thank you very much for taking your time and being part of this leadership summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Nayagan.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir. Now we call upon Parma ma'am to share a few words.
Hello, everyone. Once again, very warm thank you to all of you. And one thing that we are very frightened is that, once this online panel discussions have started, whether we will get in probably the next year for our Purvodaya people from different parts of the country to join our panel discussions. But your words were, gave us a lot of hope that all of you are still ready to come, take the trouble, travel all the way, take that flight and the cab and come. That very heartwarming for all of us. Thanks a lot for taking out your time, and thank you for a wonderful and really erudite discussion. Many thanks.
Thank you. Thank you to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for those kind words. Thank you, dear faculty, for sharing your thoughts and experiences with us. Thank you, esteemed panelists, for such a riveting session. We enjoyed listening to your perspectives a lot, and we thank all the faculty members for being a part of the session. We hope that this is a beginning of a deeper relationship with you and your organizations, and we hope to see you on the campus sometime soon. Thank you, everyone. We hope you have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you.